Well, hey, I hope you're doing. Welcome to Wednesday. It's a great day to be in the Word. Wednesday in the Word. We're going to have our 11 a.m. Bible study where I hope to conclude discussion on Job's uh, part of the dialogue in chapters 12 through 14. We also have Wednesday night supper this evening at 6. You're welcome to be part of that. Spaghetti and salad on the menu. And that's always good. We come to a refreshing part of the book of Job today, and that is chapter 37. And the reason it is so refreshing is because it is the end of human speech, not the very end, not the absolute end. But we've heard from Eliphaz, we've heard from Bildad, we've heard from Zophar, we've heard from Job, and in chapter 37 we conclude the hearing from Elihu. In chapter 36, Elihu said, I've got to speak on behalf of God. Well, he does a very poor job speaking for God in chapter 36. He does a better job speaking of God in chapter 37, and it's relevant to us. I don't know if you enjoyed those warmer temperatures yesterday and those blue skies, but I thought it was very refreshing and very spring-like. And in Job 37, let me just catch some of the things that he says that may particularly relate to our particular season. Chapter 37, verse 6, he's talking about God's majesty in creation, God's almighty control over weather patterns. He begins, hear attentively to the thunder of his voice, the rumbling that comes from his mouth. And so Elihu is pointing out that God is far bigger than us and that God has something to say. And when God has something to say, we need to listen. It is so appropriate that in this final human statement in the book that Elihu is pointing us to God, because God is getting ready to speak in chapter 38. And that's where our attention should be. But he says in verse 6, he says to the snow, fall on the earth, likewise to the gentle rain and to the heavy rain of his strength. And so we've just come through a season of snow, 2 straight weeks of snowy weather, or at least enough snow and sleet that it hung around for more than 2 weeks. But at the same time, down in verse 17, Elihu says, why are your garments hot when he quiets the earth by the south wind? While God, and the text says in another place that he brings those things on the earth for correction as well as for mercy. Snow, while it may be inconvenient for many of us and a welcome sight for some of us, it is still part of God replenishing the water tables and giving us the sustaining water that we'll depend upon for 12 months rather than just a rainy spring or a snowy winter or anything. It sustains us through the drought of summer. And so, but then in verse 17, he quiets the earth by the south wind. Interesting enough, I don't know how things operate in the southern hemisphere. I've spent very little time there, but when we hear the word south wind, that wind that comes down out of the Gulf from the United States southwest and push it, you can count on the fact that it's going to warm up 10 or 20 degrees. You can count on the fact that you'll be able to face the breeze and feel that on your face, not like the breeze that we experienced on the Lord's Day and Saturday that was just so unpleasant and just downright bitter cold. No, a south breeze. I don't know if in the southern hemisphere they depend upon a northern breeze to do that, but I'm not as familiar with their weather patterns. We get to the end of verse 20, chapter 37, in verse 24. Elihu says, therefore men fear him. He shows no partiality to any who are wise in heart. Elihu points our focus to God, and in chapter 38 and for the next 4 chapters, almost exclusively, there's a little question from Job that is answered that is asked in chapter 40, but almost exclusively for the next 4 chapters, we are simply going to hear the voice of God, not defending himself, for there's no reason to do that, but maybe explaining a little bit of what has been going on and pointing out that in his sovereignty, he can do whatever he wants, above and without our question. Hey, I hope you have a great Wednesday for the Lord's glory. Take care and God bless you.